hopeful that Aaron Rodgers would be gone and to be over and he could just glide into
what's
retirement.
the story there?
Well, here we go. There's chatter now, according to multiple reports, that Mike McCarthy and Aaron Rodgers could be joining forces. The latest report indicates Rodgers is seriously considering returning, and the odds are increasing that he returns with the Steelers. I don't understand where this is coming from. Now, is your guess this is McCarthy's camp or Rodgers'
Well,
camp?
it depends. Do you trust Will Howard? Do you think Will Howard is good enough for a year? Because I think Mike McCarthy, with some of their weapons, I think Will Howard, if he can play, and that's up to McCarthy, they haven't seen him. I don't think it's about Aaron.
Yeah.
I think if you think Will Howard is worth 15 starts, 16 starts, let's see if the kid can play.
Yeah.
I think you go for it.
I think you got to see what these young guys have. Now, we got stats for Rodgers the last 2 years, one with the Jets, one with the Steelers. And surprisingly, when you cherry pick these stats, he's not awful. Right
No.
now, if you look at some advanced metrics, he falls down because he can't run. He's immobile.
And he does not throw a lot of picks. He never has.
Didn't have the greatest weapons in Pittsburgh. I know you like them, but like on the outside, they don't have a top 10 receiver.
I thought Aaron got rid of all the chaos. I didn't think Pittsburgh was a smart offense the last 6-7 years. I thought Aaron made the offense smarter and eliminated turnovers. I thought Aaron had all things considered, a very strong year.
So somewhere, Arthur Smith, probably Columbus, Ohio, Arthur Smith is like, hey, can I get some credit for that? Because he obviously was the offensive coordinator. I just don't know what to make of Rodgers at this point, Colin. Like, at some point, you've got to reboot. You can't just keep, hey, let's just keep Rodgers. Like, why don't you just rip the Band-Aid off and move on?
All right, I understand the perspective. You may not be a proponent of Aaron Rodgers. That's a valid personal stance. However, these post-Super Bowl periods are invariably instructive, as they compel an examination of the champion's blueprint. The analysis centers on their journey, what strategic decisions were made, which roster moves proved pivotal, and how they ultimately constructed a title-winning organization. This reflective exercise naturally invites a comparative evaluation of other franchises. Observing the Pittsburgh Steelers, the conventional reactive refrain is to rip the Band-Aid off and initiate a full-scale rebuild. The pertinent question is, for what ultimate purpose? If the organizational objective is to cultivate a young quarterback you believe can evolve into a long-term starter, there is immense strategic value in retaining a veteran like Aaron Rodgers for an additional season. This allows the developmental quarterback to continue his apprenticeship, observing, practicing, and learning within a structured, competitive environment. The team can simultaneously retool other roster segments. Then, when Rodgers' tenure concludes, the transition occurs. If the confidence in the waiting quarterback is justified, you effectively replicate the model executed by the Green Bay Packers during their own transitional period. There is nothing inherently flawed with this methodology. It is a pragmatic, phased approach to contention. This strategy is also predicated on trust in the newly installed leadership. The hiring of Mike McCarthy signifies a belief in his capacity to elevate the offensive operation, a competency he demonstrated in both Green Bay and Dallas. The expectation is for a more efficiently run, schematically advanced offense. Pairing that offensive mind with a seasoned veteran quarterback of Rodgers' pedigree constitutes a genuinely compelling prospect. It's an interesting counterpoint to the prevailing critique that the Steelers' model is antiquated, with excessive resource allocation toward defense at the offense's expense. The fundamental issue in Pittsburgh has not been the financial distribution between units. The core problem has been that the defense, despite its investment, has consistently failed to deliver in season-defining, high-leverage playoff moments. Precisely the kind of heroic performances we witnessed from the Seattle Seahawks against New England, or the Philadelphia Eagles against Kansas City in recent Super Bowl victories. In those instances, the defenses rose to the occasion. Even the previous champion's defense bailed out its quarterback after a critical mistake. The Steelers' shortcoming has been a failure to achieve complementary excellence. They simply have not been sufficiently proficient on both sides of the football simultaneously. Consequently, I perceive tremendous value in bringing back Aaron Rodgers for another campaign. You now have Mike McCarthy, an established head coach who does not require a period of acclimation to the role's broader responsibilities. While easing his transition is not a primary concern, the stability provided by a veteran quarterback remains beneficial. If you retain Rodgers, an elite caliber veteran, execute judicious moves in free agency and the draft. You establish a different form of stability than what the previous regime offered. That stability could provide a higher offensive ceiling. If the defense performs adequately, the combination of McCarthy and Rodgers possesses the schematic and experiential acumen to navigate a playoff victory, potentially advancing to a conference championship. The predominant uncertainty, unquestionably, revolves around the remaining capacity of Aaron Rodgers. That is the pivotal variable. This is an aging roster, particularly on defense, and the receiving core lacks elite talent. However, this reality could itself inform the strategy. The organization could conclude, our defensive floor is sufficiently high, we will now aggressively allocate resources to the offense. This could manifest in drafting offensive talent early or acquiring established playmakers. If you draft a receiver in the first round, for instance, the value of that young player spending a formative year working with Aaron Rodgers is incalculable. It is worth its weight in gold. Even if Rodgers is no longer at his absolute peak, the mentorship, the nuanced route discussions, the exposure to professional preparation, all of it accelerates a rookie's development exponentially. Therefore, in the subsequent season, when the transition to the next quarterback occurs, that young receiver is entering his second year having been molded by a future Hall of Famer, rather than trying to develop alongside a rookie quarterback who is himself grappling with the basics of professional football. The logic is straightforward and compelling. I am even receptive to the idea of the Steelers adopting an overtly offensive-focused approach this coming season, acquiring young offensive talent and framing the year as Rodgers' mission to mentor and elevate that group, with championship aspirations being secondary. This represents a viable, strategic pathway. The specific direction hinges on two factors: the forthcoming personnel moves and an honest assessment of Rodgers' remaining capabilities. If he retains significant juice, the team might be tempted to supplement the roster with more veteran talent for an immediate push, a path similar to recent experiments. Hindsight suggests previous offensive investments were insufficient. Retaining certain playmakers might have created a more dynamic attack, opened running lanes, and alleviated pressure on the offensive line. Interesting possibilities exist, but their efficacy depends on trusting Mike McCarthy's schematic vision and the collaborative dialogue between him and Rodgers. Multiple plausible paths forward exist, but we lack sufficient information to designate an optimal one. If Rodgers has enough left in the tank and McCarthy's vision is trusted to tweak the scheme effectively, a playoff run is conceivable. If not, the value in retaining Rodgers as a bridge quarterback remains substantial. The rip the Band-Aid off analogy is often misguided. A veteran like Rodgers isn't merely a placeholder. He is a high-caliber bridge quarterback who also functions as an on-field coach and developer of talent. This role is fundamentally different from employing a typical journeyman bridge quarterback. It allows for the concurrent development of the surrounding young roster, a critical process. Organizations are willing to pay a premium for this, $20 million or more, because simply inserting a rookie into a talent-deficient situation often leads to systemic failure, stunting the growth of every other player on the offense. They fail to gain winning experience or develop within a functional system. At a bare minimum, with Rodgers, you secure that developmental environment for the rest of the offense, plus the immeasurable, intangible benefits of his football intellect and leadership. That combination holds significant value. Those are my analytical reflections. I am exceedingly interested to hear your perspectives. What is your assessment of Aaron Rodgers and the Pittsburgh Steelers? As a fan, would you support his return alongside Mike McCarthy? What strategic route do you believe the franchise should pursue? Share your thoughts below. I read every single comment. Whether you find yourself in agreement or passionate disagreement, let's engage in discussion, let's debate, but ultimately, let's share in the analytical process. Please consider subscribing to the channel. We are cultivating a fantastic community here, and I would be thrilled for you to participate. My aim is to build a space where we feel a genuine collective connection and shared enthusiasm for the sport. I believe we are making significant progress toward that goal. Also, please remember to give this video a thumbs up, as it substantially assists with visibility and distribution within the platform's algorithmic framework. Thank you so much for your time and engagement.